Meanwhile, stocks have soared under President Trump, and so has business optimism. The Business Roundtable Index showing executives are more optimistic about sales and hiring. And the National Federation of Independent Businesses, which are small businesses, reporting a similar surge in optimism, but warning a big drop in confidence if health care and tax discussions continue without action. To that group's president and CEO, Juanita Duggan. Juanita, thanks for joining us. I thought that was a pretty clear warning, if you will, to Washington, D.C. Don't blow it.
Well, this is an historic first opportunity for the administration and the Republican Congress to make good on the agenda that the American people and small business owners voted for this year. This bill, the Obamacare Repeal and Replace, is going to eliminate the massive taxes and individual and employer mandates that have been just strangling small business since the beginning. And you might remember that NFIB was the group that sued to overturn Obamacare at the Supreme Court. And I think this is our I told you so moment. Everything we said would happen, happened. The Obamacare health market is in a shambles. It is in shambles. You did call it. And I think what we saw, too, was an amazing slump in entrepreneurship and the kind of businesses that ultimately grow big enough to be a part of your organization that we considered a heartbeat of American commerce, right? Small business really took the biggest hit on this, didn't they? Oh, they most certainly did. And the worst part is that it limited choices for small business owners' employees. Don't forget, we're not just talking about small business owners, but small business has half the payroll in the United States. So when you mess up the health care market for a small business owner, you really hurt those employees. Juanita, the Business Roundtable, let's just call them your larger brethren, had their conference yesterday, and they laid out three things that they think must happen to really propel the economy. In addition, of course, to repealing and replacing Obamacare, they talked about tax reform, they talked about infrastructure spending, and of course, repatriation is big on their list as well. Do you rank any of the potential items on the Trump agenda as the most important that you'd love to see happen sooner rather than later? By the way, give me 1 second because we're watching as President Trump departs Air Force One. He's in Detroit right now. He's got a lot of meetings lined up. It's a really exciting day. We must remember Donald Trump was the first Republican to win the state of Michigan since 1988. So it's a big moment for him and all those people that voted for him as well. All right, Juanita, I'm sorry. Let's pick up on there. What's the most important item next on the Trump agenda that you'd like to see go through? Well, you asked if we poll our members, and we certainly do every month in the Small Business Economic Trends Report that we've been doing for 42 years. And for the last 30 years, our members have been extremely consistent. It is tax reform and lower taxes, lowering health care costs, and regulation. And we think that these are the three things that this president has agreed to champion. He's already done an enormous amount of regulatory reform. If you look at the number of executive orders, it's quite impressive. And Congress has agreed to do tax reform with him. The biggest problem for small business in this tax reform plan is that we need parity between rates of small businesses and large corporations. And that's going to be one of our biggest priorities for NFIB. That has been a big sticking block, and I think a lot of politicians overlook that. I do have to ask, though, because in Detroit today, a border tax or a border adjustment tax will be one of the main topics. How does your organization feel about that? Well, we don't really take a position on border taxes. Our main priority is to get the small business tax rates down, and that they have parity between small businesses and large corporations. We're not going to allow ExxonMobil to have a higher tax rate or a lower tax rate, excuse me, than the auto mechanic on the corner. That's just not fair. Before I let you go, Juanita, again, I just mentioned, how entrepreneurship and small business has really spiraled, almost in a death spiral, if you will, over the last 8 years, particularly the last 4. Do you sense, beyond your optimism index that we've seen, do you sense that this kind of a groundswell, a rejuvenation, or even a renaissance for small businesses? Oh, we think so. The optimism index is at a all-time high. And whenever we see that in our Small Business Economic Trend Report, about 3 months later, we actually see the capital expansion and the growth and the hiring. So we think we're very strong harbinger of a recovery. So we would agree and hope that that's the case. Congratulations, Juanita. I really appreciate your time.